What's up, everybody? What's up, MGTOW? So I just wanted to talk about space a little bit more, and more specifically, the original moon landing and Elon Musk's most recent announcement about the private space flight to the moon. So before I talk about that, I just wanted to talk about a lot of the different, conspiracy theories, or whatever you want to call them, just different theories about space itself that seem to be going around. And from my perspective, it kind of seems like the whole flat earth thing is kind of a Christian-based theory. Because it seems to me that all of the science, the new science and stuff like that, it really kind of invalidates the Christian worldview from a very biblical sense. Like, if you take the Bible literally, which I have no problem with. Actually, I have a lot more respect for people that do take the Bible literally. But at the same time, science definitely does disprove a lot of the stuff that's in the Bible. And of course, we can have the argument of, well, you can't even prove that you exist. I can't prove that I exist because all my experiences are subjective, so it's impossible for me to actually prove that I exist. But at the same time, just looking at it from a person perspective, I guess, there are certain inconsistencies in reality that just don't line up with what's in the Bible. And so I can see how it would be hard for people that believe in a literal interpretation of the Bible to acknowledge that space exists and that there's other planets, and that all the what we see as stars are actually galaxies with billions of stars in them, and each one of those stars could have planets around them, and some of those planets could have planets that are like Earth with life on them. I mean, it's possible. I mean, obviously it's not proven, but that right there would be a very devastating blow to the Christian worldview, because then it would say that, God didn't only create humans in a very specific manner. And then also genetic information also kind of disproves the Christian worldview, because it's saying that we all came from one single type of life beginning or whatever, as opposed to the Christian view that God created all the people separately in a separate way, or some type of different way, and he made some people better than other people. And I mean, just the whole idea of space and people being able to leave the planet, and there being multiple possibilities and even possibly multiple dimensions, I don't think that goes against like a conception of God or some type of source creator, because then you have to ask the question of, do we have free will, or is there a plan? Does God have a plan? Because I think that or those ideas are contradictory. Because it's like, do humans have free will, or does God have a plan? Because you can't have both. God can't have a plan for you to have free will. Well, I mean, he could, but not in the sense of God does stuff. God helps certain people and doesn't help other people that don't believe in God. And, that's kind of a reverse solipsistic viewpoint, if I could put it that way. Because it's still solipsistic, because you think that something external from you is making you special. So it's kind of like reverse solipsism, basically. And I mean, from the evidence I've seen, like, if there is a source creator, it doesn't do anything. Because I personally have to believe in free will, because in this question of the free will versus God's plan, that's the only way that I could rectify the question of, why do bad things happen to good people and innocent children? Like, why do babies get cancer? That's the only explanation that I have for it, is that if there is some type of source creator, it doesn't do anything, and humans have free will. And I mean, this question is even presented within the Bible, because isn't that why the angels rebelled against God? Is because God gave humans free will and the angels didn't have free will. And so those angels got upset with God and tried to start a war. I'm not sure. But I mean, it still leaves some questions to be answered, even most simple, basic science questions. Like, for one, if you don't believe in history, how do you explain water erosion? Because I've been to the Grand Canyon, and it doesn't seem like scientists could fake the Grand Canyon and fake water erosion. And I know that water erosion exists because every time I use soap, the soap bar gets a little bit smaller. And every time it gets a little bit smaller, if you run water on it, and you can see how rocks and rivers turn around and different types of geological phenomena that happen to point to the fact that, time exists and history exists, and that there is a good rough estimate about, how long the earth has existed and stuff like that. And it doesn't really fit into the literal Christian worldview. And then if you don't believe that space exists at all, and that there's some type of dome covering the earth, then how do you explain Google Maps? Like, how do you explain how Google Maps works? Because if they were flying up there in a plane, how could they take real-time pictures of my car in my driveway and know when my car is in my driveway and when it's not? Because if they were flying over in a plane, it seems like the continent's pretty big. They'd have to fly back and forth a lot to take all those pictures. So the best explanation for me is that they're actually in space, and they have satellites in space. How do you explain, satellite TV and stuff like that? I mean, it wouldn't make sense like any other way, except that they're actually that far away from the planet. But anyhow, I guess back to the original questions or topic is, do I think that the original moon landing was fake? I definitely have some serious questions about the original moon landing, and seeing all the footage and the way that the astronauts acted about it and stuff like that. I definitely think that the original moon landing could have been faked. And my reason for that is that, well, let's say you were working on a project and you and one other person were competing on that project. And you guys had the exact same materials, basically, and whoever completed the project first got like a cash prize, like $10,000. And each person was separated by a cubicle. So basically, you could hear the person next to you working on the project, and, but you couldn't see what they were doing. What would be the best way to get your opponent to stop working on the project? You just shout, "I'm finished, I'm done." And then they can't see you. They don't know if you're actually finished or not. And then they'd be like, oh my God, he's finished. I might as well just stop working on it. So that's why I think they faked the moon landing, because they were competing with Russia, and Russia was getting ahead of them, actually, because they were the first people to put a satellite in space with Sputnik, and they were sending a bunch of animals and stuff up there to see if people could survive, or biological organisms could even survive. And so they faked the moon landing to get Russia to stop working on, their project, because they kind of demoralized Russia when they did all that. And they're like, yeah, we won. And then Russia was like, ah. But that's just my theory on it. And as for the question of why some countries were given fake moon rocks, I have no clue why they would do that. Because you're able to even find asteroids on Earth, like little pieces of asteroids. So I don't know why they wouldn't give them that instead of just something fake, completely fake. It doesn't make any sense. So anyway, saying all that, I can see why people are very suspicious of the whole Elon Musk thing and his big freaking rocket or whatever, and just all of his goings on and doings, and the fact that he gets tons of money from the government, which is very interesting. But there were definitely some anomalies in the announcement that he made, And that's why I can see why it's very suspicious. Because, like, for instance, he's getting all this money from the government, but then when this Japanese guy is going to pay him a bunch of money, all of a sudden he's getting more excited about building the rocket or whatever and doing this moon trip. Like, you're already getting, like, basically, like, billions and billions of dollars from taxpayers, but that wasn't getting you excited. Now all of a sudden this guy wants to give you more money, and you're like, oh, now we can work on it faster. And, it's like, what? I mean, what the hell? Like, how much money do you need? Like, how excited do you need to get? And it's like the Japanese guy himself, it's like, I've never heard of him. Supposedly he's got some company and he's a multi-billionaire, and doesn't seem like many Japanese people knew about him, because there was a bunch of Japanese press people there at the meeting or at the announcement, and they didn't seem to know who he was. But he's a billionaire and he wants to go to the moon. And then I guess the other thing that's interesting that definitely fits in with the whole propaganda theory is that he wants to take social media influencers and artists and stuff like that on the trip. It's like, why doesn't he bring some of these more skeptical people? Like, I think that somebody should bring somebody that's skeptical of this, that's been a vocal proponent. And I know Elon Musk was joking about saying that people were saying that the space didn't exist so that they could get a ride to the moon. But you kind of got to take somebody that doesn't believe in it. Like, that would be the best way to prove to a lot of people, that it does exist, is take somebody, a big social media influencer that doesn't believe in it, and take him up there. So it's kind of interesting that they're doing that they're going to bring artists and, like, cultural influencers and then take them on this trip that a lot of people don't believe in, and then they're going to come back and tell, oh, the moon was so real, that was, so it's kind of, it's not proving it to the people that they need to prove it to, since most people believe that it exists. But I mean, besides that, obviously this is going to be happening well into the future in like 2023 or probably further off than that. But it definitely does seem like this is part of what Trump was talking about when he was talking about how he's going to unleash the secrets and all that stuff in his inaugural speech. But it's just interesting that it's happening privately, and whatever NASA's doing, we're not seeing very much of that. Even though they did announce the Space Force and all that other stuff, they're not showing us anything. They showed us like one or two pictures of like a spaceship, and that was it. And Elon Musk, the same thing. At least he's showing us what he's going to do, but how believable is it? Like, how, until people, I guess, see it or see some results from it, it's still just, he's just very weird, mysterious kind of guy that's getting a bunch of money from the government and pretending to build rocket ships. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to talk about the whole moon landing and the whole SpaceX and even the Space Force and stuff like that. It's interesting to me, at least, because it does kind of call into question a lot of religious theories and a lot of scientific theories and historical facts and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's it. Have a good day and go MGTOW.